Contact front! It's right! Today we launch into a very important series. We have urban survival principles. Now, the first survival principle we're going to be talking about today is going to be about shooting through automobile glass. This might seem like a niche topic, but in terms of urban, a vehicle shooting in or out of a vehicle is going to be a very important consideration simply because, well, vehicles are one of the easiest methods to get around in the city. John, I know you had some things for this as well.
Yeah, so you could always bring up, oh, well, I mean, shoot it with a 308 and it's going to go right through it. Yeah, of course. But one thing we really want to touch on is more anemic calibers, which tend to do very weird things when going through intermediate barriers like auto glass or panes of glass outside of stores, which are very similar in construction. But I think this would be a very good bit of information for especially like guys overseas that are manning checkpoints and stuff like that, where there's a very good chance you might have to deal with a vehicle trying to run the gate. And it's just a little bit more situational awareness with very common calibers, how they actually perform. Because you guys can do this on your own, but I mean, we're saving you the trouble right now, so.
Precisely. Now, many great people have touched upon this topic already, whether it be Paul Harrell or whether it be Kyle Lamb, both of which have a lot of experience shooting through automobile glass. So today we hope to show you both for our servicemen who are overseas, but more importantly for those of you at home. You never know what's going to happen, and we're huge believers in the Second Amendment, which means not just defending yourself, but also defending yourself versus the government. So there might be a point in your time in your life where you might have to do this. Having this knowledge now could possibly mean the difference between you going home to your family or just dying because you don't know what the round's going to do as it goes through a windshield. Now, before we get into it, we of course have to thank the biggest sponsor of our channel, who is Primary Arms. If you're looking for the best pistol optic, the HTX-1 is great, but they have tons of other great stuff. Go and give them so much love. Say, well, you know what? I hear that it is now Reese's Pieces June, maybe, and that sounds like a good time. So email them for Reese's Pieces June. But if you're looking to be a more American, nothing's more American than a lever action rifle. Henry Repeating Arms is a proud sponsor of Grand Thumb, and we love them so much. Go and show them tons of love. In fact, if you go to henrythumb.com, we can't say anything about it here, but many special surprises. Of course, we recommend getting better at shooting. Mantis will turn you into a great shooter by helping you do lots of dry fire. Finally, all ammunition is provided for by AAC. And with all that being said, auto glass was actually cheap. It was free. But, you know, knowledge is priceless. So there are a lot of things that we're going to be talking about when it comes to shooting through automotive glass. And primarily, we're going to be talking about the front windshield. Because when it comes to the side windows of the back window, those are designed to shatter upon impact. So those are easy to get through. And in fact, if you can make a shot through those, no problem. But when it comes to the front windshield, this thing is not meant to shatter at all. In fact, it's supposed to be quite strong. There's often multiple panes depending on the year of which it was made, with a plastic layer between. So there's a lot of different layers that can really mess up what rounds are doing. And another consideration is going to be the fact that depending on the type of vehicle that you're going to be shooting through, you're going to have different types of slants and slopes, whether it be near vertical like a bus, all the way to extremely slanted like a Subaru or something like that. So you have a lot of different considerations. In addition to that, there is typically a bulge, a curvature to the automotive glass as well that can also affect ballistics. Now, there's a lot of different considerations to talk about when it comes to shooting through. The easiest thing that we can say is that the further you are from being head-on with glass, the more off to an angle you are, the greater the chance of deflection of the round. This is well understood. And greats like Paul Harrell have talked about this at length, as have Kyle Lamb. But one of the most interesting things is, due to the non-uniform nature of automotive glass and how it curves, there isn't really a fast and hard rule when it comes to precisely what a bolt will do. Some bolts will bounce, some won't. There's some understanding as far as the bullet types, but today we have a phantom camera and we're going to be able to visualize the round as it goes through so we can see precisely how it's performing. This is going to be extremely important so that you understand what your guns are capable of in the field in real life situations. Now we're going to be starting off with a simple 22 to see what that will be doing, and then we'll be stepping up through many of the common calibers that you might carry, such as 9mm, 223, 7.62 by 39, and of course, the great, the always loved 308, in this case via a Scar H. So let's launch into it. First off, we'll be starting off with a 22. This is just a standard lightweight 22 with a 16-inch barrel. So we'll be starting with this. This is your basic Federal 22, just a lead projectile. So let's see how it performs.
And 3, 2, 1, action.
Well, that punched through with no problems whatsoever. So as you can see, it brought a lot of glass with it, but we also have the 22 as a whole go through. So surprising, a lot of people have said that 22 will not go through. I can see that from a pistol, but when it comes to a rifle, it certainly has more than enough energy to punch straight through. Right here we have Browning High Power. This is a weapon that is commonly used throughout many nations as a service weapon. Your standard 4.5-inch barrel, pushing 124 grain NATO spec 9mm to about the speed it should be going at, about 1100 plus. So we have NATO spec 124 grain. Let's go ahead and let's get it started.
2, 1, action.
So one thing that we want to think about too is when we're firing through glass, we're going to be taking a lot of pieces of glass with it, with the round. Now these aren't necessarily, well, they can be fatal depending on which pieces of glass hit you, but it can also produce a blinding effect. So when we're talking about eye pro is really important. Also, it's not good to breathe in all that glass dust, but I'm already partially retarded, so it shouldn't affect me too much. Now, in the case of the FMJ round, it was mostly intact, like we've seen with other tests, whether it be the FBI, Hornady, or others. It did shave off a majority of the jacket of the projectile on its way through, which is generally why a lot of people don't recommend just like a lead cord jacketed round. So it's kind of common knowledge that hollow points tend to do a little bit better through automotive glass because it kind of plugs up that hollow point cavity. It just works better. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna fire a Spear Gold Dot through, and we're gonna see how it performs at this point. Spear Gold Dot, 124 grain, through my favorite firearm, the Browning High Power. Is it your favorite firearm too, John?
Yeah, it is now.
3, 2, 1, action.
So one thing that we've seen that we need to point out at this point is deflection. As the rounds come through, there's always going to be deflection. Now, you've heard a lot of people say it's up, it's down, it's left, it's right. I think Kyle Lamb said it most. If they say it's usually one way, it's because they haven't shot automotive glass enough. And I think he has a pretty good point. And Paul Harrell has said much the same thing. Generally, how it's understood is that there's a cone of deflection once a round hits automotive glass. This is between deflection about 0.4 to 0.8 inches for every foot of travel behind the automotive glass, just to illustrate how quickly that round's going to deflect. So for a lot of people who are firing from within a car outside, you have to think about the distance of an individual. If they're 10 feet away, you're looking at a very significant cone of air that's going to make it very hard to strike somebody. Now, if somebody's in a vehicle, they're usually, depending on the vehicle and how close up to the steering wheel they are, how much of a nerd they are, about 2 to 3 feet behind the automotive glass. So take that into consideration. You have, at minimum, about 1.5 inches all the way up to 4 to 5 inches of cone of air from your pistol rounds that you're seeing. Now, rifle rounds could be a little bit more unpredictable because depending on the speed and the weight of the projectile, a lot more things can happen. So we're going to go ahead at this point and start testing these rounds through and seeing what type of impacts we're seeing on a ballistic dummy for all the future rounds of firing. All right, firing through to see the impact on the dummy right here. So we can see the impact right there. Now this dummy is partially dead, but that's life. And it looks like we still had some pretty good energy. So let's go ahead and let's pull that slug out and kind of see what we got going. Oh, it exited. Look at that. So we actually had the round exit through the dummy. So it had plenty of power coming through. So clearly there's something to be said about firing through windshields. You could see the deflection that we had from it up So it looks like we were within that margin of error that we talked about. So let's go ahead and let's step it up. Let's see how these other rounds do. But beyond that, you can see all of the glass dust that also came off here and shredded through. Pretty cool. Let's keep going.
Oh my God, Mike. Is that a URGI?
Yeah, it's actually an M4. Do you know how it's an M4? Because it's a Colt M4. Says so right there.
Wow. Can't read. I'm glad you told me that.
Now, being in an urban environment, collapse of society, military, whatever you might be, there's a very high likelihood in an urban environment that you probably have a 5.56 gas gun. That's just the standard. All military forces are issued them. For all my guys out there who are defending their families and freedom, you're probably using a 5.56 gas gun as well. Being urban, shorter variants are certainly going to be king in many environments. This is an 11.5 Geissele URGI. This is a very common barrel length that you see. You'll see shorter down to 10.3, or you see longer up to 14.5, 16, or for the true Chads, M16s, right, John?
Yeah, sure.
John hates that so much. But the point is, the 11.5 is going to have reduced velocity. If you have a 14.5, think of it as taking a shot about 100 yards to equal the velocity of this about close up. But don't believe just because you have an 11.5 you're outgunned. These are extremely effective weapons. Now, the first round we're going to be testing is going to be M855 because it is super common, super well used within the military. And then beyond that, there's some facts when it comes to shooting through automotive glass that might make this military round worth it for you. John, if you'll take it away from here.
So I think it's interesting, early 2000s, especially whenever the government was wanting to ban the sale of green tip, everyone panicked because they really wanted AP ammo, even though this is light AP ammo.
Yeah.
But then people really started to hate on this round for some valid reasons. It's not that great on soft flesh, but I think it's underrated, to be completely honest with you. The reason why is, so in the 80s, the Army wanted a 5.56 round that had a little bit better performance for body armor and like specifically Russian helmets at about 600 meters. So like, hey, what if we made the top half of the core a hardened steel cone, right? So there are some downsides. It tends to overbalance the round, not do too well on soft flesh, but intermediate barriers, it's actually really good. And you'll see with auto glass and vehicles in general, whether it's the metal doors, green tip is very, very good. It's also very plentiful, a little on the pricey side, but because it's a military round, but you can get this at any like sportsman store or anything like that.
And as you go to National Guard armories after the apocalypse, it's free. And there's millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of rounds of it. Literally probably one of the most ubiquitous rounds in the US.
One thing I would like to add is a lot of combat optics. The BDC, the bullet drop compensator that's made into the reticle, is specifically calibrated for a hotly loaded 62 grain round, and that's exactly what this is. So yeah, food for thought.
Food for thought. I'm hungry.
Green tip.
In 3, 2, 1, action.
Okay, so we have our tiny little entrance wind right there. Then we have an exit. It did travel all the way through. And very interestingly, you can see right here, the round was completely keyholing, so it was tumbling as it exited. It does look like it stayed almost completely intact, which is something to be said about M855, because you want to try to keep all that energy in that round to go through. We want the entire slug to impact somebody to make sure that they're dead. If you're shooting at them, you want them dead.
As you can see, there's that hardened steel cone that we were talking about. And it looks like the lead is completely squished out of the bottom. And that's something that is very nasty to be going through your body at what knows angle. Everyone likes to on this round, but it is still very, very lethal.
Next up, we have a 77 grain Sierra Match King open tip match. Now, due to the open front tip, a lot of people assume it's a hollow point. It's technically an open tip match round. The Geneva Conventions, Geneva Suggestions, as they say, right, John?
So to be fair, we were never an official signatory to the Hague Treaty.
Yeah, so they can screw right off. Flamethrowers, 4 days. What? Okay, so we're gonna see how this performs. It is mostly lead with a copper jacket. So let's see what its performance is gonna look like.
I'd say it's definitely better than just a typical 55 grain lead core copper jacket.
You'd think so. Hey John, I've been feeling pretty juicy lately.
You are juicy.
Thanks, buddy.
In 3, 2, 1, action.
Way too low. Oh my gosh! Look at that. Okay, dude, my buddy, I wonder if he's watching this. I probably shouldn't say his name. He shot a dude in Iraq, and it did this exact.
That's how you know you got desired effects.
Yeah, it was a 50 cal, but you know, So remember in movies you shoot and it spatters up? Like, how's that happen? It's called the jet effect, gentlemen. It's where it hits and... Okay, so let's take a look at that open tip. Oh, dude, there's smoke coming out of that. There's smoke. You see some of it? That's wild. That was great performance from the open tip match. So in terms of 77 grain, it did break apart a lot more than M855. That being said, it still had good effect on target. Now, something that people get confused about when they look at a ballistic dummy is they assume it's going to be a one-to-one human analog. Ballistic gelatin it is not a one-to-one human analog. Bullets travel a lot further in ballistic gelatin. So the performance that we wanted to see is what the M855 did, which is where it punches straight through. The 77 grain lost a lot of energy and be a little bit more anemic, but like John just mentioned, it's going to be no slouch. It's still going to get you desired effects. Just understand that you want to tailor your rounds for your environment. So being out here in the mountains of Idaho, 77 grain OTM is great. It's a great long range round. However, being urban, it might be better, or God, no, I'm not going to say that word. It might be a good idea to switch over to a round that's going to perform better through different types of barriers, such as an M855, or if you can get your hands on it, the M855 Alpha 1.
So yeah, 77 OTM, fantastic round. A lot of our guns are zeroed for it. It's a good general purpose performer, but if you think that you have a chance of going into an urban environment and you might have to deal with something like this, maybe just having one mag of steel core ammo on standby just in case, because at that point it doesn't matter how it does at range. You need close range performance right now through an intermediate barrier, so maybe having just a mag of steel core on standby is a good idea.
Red Army standard, 123 grain, just your basic FMJ. We're touching that out because it is the most ubiquitous round. This is a basic AKM right here, and we're going to be firing through because this is a gun that you're going to be seeing in other countries, or especially among people just within the US. It's a very popular weapon overall.
3, 2, 1, action.
So, looks like we had pretty good performance. We'll talk about that in a moment. You have to realize these are 123 grain rounds. Typical, 5.56 is a 55 to 62 grain round. So these are significantly heavier, however, significantly slower with significantly less range. That being said, it did look like our round broke apart pretty significantly, but it still had great travel through the barrier because it is simply a heavier round, and those tend to do better through barriers.
Yeah, it's like Mike was saying, majority of AKM ammunition is about twice the weight of your standard 5.56 stuff, going significantly slower, but still all that extra mass really pays off with stuff like this. Now, it's not just, oh, well, why not just always use the AKM for stuff like this? Well, this also has a little bit more recoil that you're gonna have to deal with. So stacking those shots, especially in a stressful situation like a vehicle driving towards you, not gonna be as easy with something like the AKM. Another thing of note is a lot of your typical 300 Blackout supersonic ammunition, at least at the muzzle or very close distances, is almost identical. It's a little bit less powerful than this, but it is pretty similar. So
prior to 7.62x39 being kind of scarce due to all the import bans, people used to call 300 Blackout just really expensive. 7.62x39, yeah, that's not true. So let's go ahead and let's try one of the AAC's rounds, and we'll see how that performs.
All right, so this is you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about. This is AAC Saberblade. It's my understanding it is a Hornady SST projectile. Just think VMAX 7.62x39, which is ridiculous. That's a lot of power.
The VMAX is often, or the SST round is pretty awesome in human flesh. I'm interested to see how it performs through automotive glass. See ya. AAC 7.62x39. Let's see how it performs.
In 3, 2, 1.
So as far as the AAC round, it looks like it broke apart, very similar to the Red Army. Now, there are 7.62x39 rounds that do have a mild steel core, Chinese ammo. It's just kind of harder to get nowadays, but you can certainly find it. I'm sure those would perform very well. We're not going to specifically show it because we're trying to hide the performance, but it's going to be very similar to 55, where it remains mostly intact. It's not a very common round, and we're trying to stick to more common rounds. So AKM, great performance. Heavy rounds do great. Now, what if we step up to an even heavier round that's even faster and go to the 308? John, how would you rate the performance of 308 in killing people?
What, John? Why are you laughing?
So 308 is great for a lot of reasons. We're big fans of the SCAR, we're big fans of battle rifles, especially in urban environments, due to their ability to punch through, not just automotive glass, but, you know, in a later video we'll be showing its ability to punch through different types of barriers that you see in urban environments, whether it be car doors, whether it be walls, etc., etc. You gotta say something about 308.
So yeah, I kind of fell into the same trap a few years ago where it's like, why would I bring a 308 that's effective out to about 700-ish whenever I've made hits with 5.56 out to that distance before, but the thing is, the raw power that you get from this thing, especially if you're lucky enough to get any kind of steel core, but even just the lead core stuff, it's gonna punch through vehicles exceptionally well. Light barriers, drywall, we're about to see auto, it's not even gonna do anything to the bullet on the side.
So it should be noted too, we do have a 13-inch barrel, so we have a short barreled SCAR right here. If you have a 16, 18-inch, just think of this performance as being your round at 100 yards, at 200 yards. I don't think this is abnormal to have a short barreled 308 in an urban environment. I think it makes a lot of sense. So with all that being said, the first round we're going to be testing is going to be M80 balls, one of the most common, most ubiquitous rounds you can find. 150 grains, traveling around 27 to 2800 feet per second, depending on barrel length. Let's check it out. SCAR H, M80 ball, 160 grain, see how it works.
And 3, 2, 1, action.
That splatter.
That splatter. It looks like a movie effect with the blood through the hole.
Yeah.
It doesn't look real, but it certainly is. So this one was so much more violent that it actually took pieces of the glass at such significant velocities, up to about the size of a 22. This is well studied, by the way. And it sent those into the dummy in addition with the slug itself. This is what we call total death. So right there you can see that the 308 just punched straight through, remained mostly intact, was tumbling coming through the glass, but punched straight through the dummy, even more effective than the M855 simply due to the weight of the projectile. The M80 isn't anything special. There's no steel penetrator or anything in there. It's just a lot of power.
It's a freight train, basically. You know the bullet from Mario?
Yeah.
That's what this thing shoots.
Great performance out of it. So next up, we're going to be testing the 168 grain. We use the 168 grain quite a bit because it's a great long range round. It's kind of similar in performance to what you'd see from a 77 grain OTM for an AR-15. So because we use so much of it, especially even in urban for those precise shots like we talked about in our DMR video, we're going to go ahead and use one of those and see how it compares. It is heavier, however, it is a slower round. Oh man, do we have the treat for you? John shooting the SCAR 168 grain.
Good to go?
Yes, sir. And 3, 2, 1, action.
Oh man, look at that. You think he's all right?
Nah, he's fine, dude. Looks like the 168 performed much the same as the M80 ball. We kind of expected that. Like John was saying, it really isn't that many more grains. However, it's just so much weight at that point and flying so well that it's just punching straight through. And as you can see, wonderful ballistic effects on the dummy. Great round. 308 just definitely has it. It's just the ammunition weighs a lot more, harder to carry quite as much, but man, does it work.
Yeah, it's got roughly 20 more grains per projectile versus regular M80 ball. Now that would be a significant difference if it was like 55 grain 5.56, but the round is already so heavy and it's so much power that it is a little bit better, but it's bad either way. Like, you're not getting out of that.
Yeah, that 3 is gonna kill you no matter what you do. Next up, we're gonna be testing shotguns, buckshot, and slugs. Let's see how those perform. We have the Beretta 1301 firing a Federal slug. These things are awesome. Let's go ahead and let's see how they perform.
In 3, 2, 1, action.
Oh my God. Be careful.
Outsies. Bit on it. Yeah, that slug went straight in. Oh, Lord, and exited straight out. Okay, blew out the lung on the way out. Well, there's our Federal rifled slug, and that performed awesome. It deformed, but we had a fairly small cone of air as far as what we were seeing once it progresses through automotive glass. So, pretty great job as far as shotguns go. Of course, shotguns do have a more limited range compared to your typical rifles. This isn't something that we recommend using as your mainstay weapon, but it was certainly effective. Next up is going to be our standard military buckshot. Let's see how that performs. We're at a 12 gauge shotgun with military buckshot.
In 3, 2, 1, action.
It's just fun. Like, John, are you having fun?
I'm having fun.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Looks like the video game, like, shotgun pattern.
So buckshot did something very interesting. Now, each pellet is quite light, lighter than your typical handgun round. And because of that, and because it's fairly slow, they deflected much like a handgun round. Once they entered, you could see the deflection downward. That's within the cone of air for what they do as they travel through windshields. But it's interesting to note that they suffered some of the same problems that your typical pistol rounds would. Now, still effective, still deadly, but still something to think about in the back of your head that for defeating barriers that typically your slugs are going to do better. As a whole, shotguns are great, just probably not the best fighting rifle, but certainly good for home defense, certainly good for other options, obviously for drones and stuff, but just remember to pick the correct weapon for what you are doing. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about a surprise tool that you might want to use. Now, a thing that can help you out is a force reset trigger or another surprise little thing. Now, when it comes to shooting through windshields, you have a probability of error. By having some type of rapidly firing mechanism in your gun, that's going to make things far easier. Let's go ahead and see the result. So in a little over a second, we were able to dump a full magazine through and to completely eviscerate this individual right here. When somebody's coming at you with a car, it's going to be important to stop them. Quickest way to stop somebody is by, well, ceasing all bodily functions of the driver. This is a great way to do that, or by having John's favorite, a saw. Now, we're going to go ahead, let's finish up, talk about what we thought was most effective, and finish this out. So this brings us to the end of the video. We've tested a lot of the common calibers, and we're going to talk about what I think was most effective. No matter what, I know the 308 is very effective in terms of fighting rifles. I think it's easy to underestimate how well 5.56 performs through a variety of barricades, and in this case, it did quite well, especially by dumping multiple rounds due to how low recoil is on a 5.56 gas gun. I really am a big fan of 5.56 in an urban environment.
Yeah, I'd say if you guys really think you're going to be going against vehicles and you need to defeat them, obviously 308 was great, but I wouldn't recommend it as your only rifle if it's just you. If you're in a team, then you can definitely get away with having one guy carrying a 308. But your ammunition capacity is going to be cut down to about 60% of what it would be with something like this right here. So you could still do a lot with 5.56. Obviously, this is better. Just know the limitations. There's always going to be give and take. Always. You can kind of bridge the gap with something like an AKM, 7.62-39 rifle. But then again, those have its own limitations.
So exactly. And again, the thing we've been doing right here is firing dead on. The further off to an angle we get, the more our rounds are going to deflect. So typically, when stopping a vehicle, we were typically taught to be about 15 to 30 degrees off of the driver's side or the passenger side to ensure that, well, if they hit the gas, they're not going to be able to drive into me as easily. So understand at that great of an angle, there's a greater chance of these rounds deflecting. And again, we can go ad nauseum. We could do 1 degree and get 100 shots until these rounds start deflecting. The point is, once you're off 15 degrees from being dead on with it, the rounds are going to start doing some wonky stuff. If you're able to get a shot through the side glass, that's a lot easier to defeat because it's going to shatter immediately. So again, if you need to fire through the front glass, understand what we've shown here, but if you can, get a better angle, try to shoot in a way that's not going to have to defeat a much tougher glass compared to the glass that you have on the side. Guys, that brings us to the end of our first video of urban survival principles defeating automotive glass. This is going to be a large series that focuses not just on terminal ballistics, but simple techniques, different TTPs, different types of tactics. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. Again, I'm Mike, Air Force Special Warfare guy. We have John here. John never says what he does. He was in the Army. He did cool stuff. John, I want you to finish up with not specifically dad advice, maybe a little bit of advice for our people right here.
I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but seriously, like, take more pictures with your friends.
That's it. Dude, after Memorial Day, and I thought about Austin a lot, dude. Like, you just don't know until you lose them, dude. And before long, the only thing you got left are the messages that you sent, the pictures that you took, and that's all you have left. So I think it's important.
It's obviously, that's whether you want to look at it as selfish, like memories for you, but also those pictures, I mean, who knows when your ticket's going to get punched. Those pictures are going to be valuable to someone else as well. So
exactly. Be friends. John, do we take enough pictures together?
Honestly, no.
We just heard videos together.
Yeah, the videos, but we don't have it. We don't have any actual pictures. We take some goofy ones
because we're not friends.
Oh yeah, I hate you. Yeah, that's true.